Okay, today we're going to be tying a Elk Hair Caddis. I believe that this is one of the simplest flies to make, but can work and be one of the best flies to use on the water. I'm going to be tying in a size 14 fly hook and using a fairly thick thread. So you're going to start by attaching your thread to the back of the hook, and then taking some gold wrap, 2 to 3 inches I would say, put it at a 45-degree angle and do a loose wrap to wrap to the very halfway, and then do a loose wrap to secure it down, or just not a super tight wrap. Then pull it through and tighten it down like that. Go back to the end of your hook there. Now taking a matching dry fly hackle, I'm using a size 14 in this case. Take off any of the webby pieces, so I'm going to take off about right there and there like that, having about that much open. Now once again, holding at that 45-degree angle, you're going to leave just a slight bit of the stem. You can see right here I have just a little bit of the stem showing. That'll help for wrapping this hackle later on in the fly. Wrap back again to about halfway and snip off this piece. Make sure to cover up any hackle stem that is still sticking out. Once that's done, wrap back to where you have your hackle. Taking some dubbing, you're going to put that on there and really try to, I have a fairly thick dubbing noodle right now, try to thin it out as much as possible. Not super thin, just to a reasonable amount of, a reasonable thickness. That way you can have a control of how big your fly body is going to be. Then a little secret, instead of wrapping a bunch of just normal thread and having a great big thread ball, use your 2 fingers and slide it up till about there, making sure the whole time that it's still tightly wrapped on there. And if pull it up and then wrap it around like so. Now that I need a little bit more, so I take some more. Don't take too much though, because then taking away dubbing is a lot harder than adding dubbing. While adding your dubbing, you should always add it little pieces at a time, and this will make it much more precise. I think that should work. Now again, pulling it up and wrapping again, trying to make it a very even body. I'd say we could probably wrap maybe once more, wrap till there, and then do a few just in front to kind of pull it all back. Now taking your hackle, you're gonna pull it forwards and kind of twist so it lays flat on the fly like that. That's just in preparation to wrap it. So while wrapping it, you want it very even spaced, like that. Once you get to the end of your dubbing, tie off, do with 1 or 2 to 4 thread wraps, depending on how strong your thread is. Next, you will, now this is something that you only do really for flies with hair as a wing. You chop off the top pieces of your hackle. This is 2 different things. First, it helps you wrap your wire. Second, when adding the alcare on top, it allows you, it doesn't stop the alcare. Now taking your wire, do a counter wrap, which means that you should, that you wrap towards yourself to start. Try to cross the stem of the hackle on top of the fly, and then underneath kind of zigzag to prevent from catching any fibers. Now once you're reached here, use your hand, one hand to hold it and the other hand to wrap it down. Again, 2 to 3 tight thread wraps to really secure it. The wire adds a bit of flash to the fly, but it also creates a stronger bodied fly. Now a little secret is, if you have any trapped fibers underneath the fly, it doesn't look like I have too many right now, but if you do have any that you've trapped with your gold wire, you can always use your pokey tool to pick those out. This just creates for a better floating on the water. Now we're going to get to the elk hair part of the Elk Hair Caddis. Taking your elk hair, in this case I'm using bleached elk hair, looks something like this. You're going to snip, for my size 14 that I'm using right now, I'm going to probably want about, I would say this, I would say probably about this much elk hair. So just come in about this much, come in and snip it off like close. It should look a little something like this, and then you will just tap right here. This takes out all of those fuzzy fibers that are coming down or coming off of it. That's an underfit fur. This keeps the animal warm. Depending on if you've bought your fur from a fly shop, or if you've bought it from, or if you've hunted it and harvested it from an animal, there will be more or less underfur. Now using your hair stacker, stack the elk hair, and once you've given it a good stacking, it should look like this. All the tips are mostly aligned. If they're not, I have a few. You can always tap it again, and that will much more align them. Now using your thumb, make sure to take, or your 2 or 3 fingers, take out the elk hair, and try to keep those tips as aligned as possible. If there's any like this that are sticking out, you can always pull those out. Now shake them out one more time. This just helps for better presentation of the fly. Now lining it up so it's just slightly extending over the body, or over the hook, trying not to catch any of those fibers, those hackle fibers. Tighten 1, 2, 3, and then you got to pinch, and pinching really tightens the hair down, and you want it as on top as possible. Tighten it down, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Tighten and pinch, and depending on how hard you can pinch, you may have to do more or less wraps, depending on how strong your thread is or what size of thread you're using. And now in front of the on the front of the fly, try to pull as many elk hair fibers back and make a slight thread dam in front of your hook. And if it starts to slip onto the hook eye like mine is, make sure just slightly tilt your whole fly back using your vise, and then they won't slip down. Now drawing all of these fibers in front up, you can give yourself anywhere from a small head to a larger head. I like a larger head, so I'll cut it off about right there. That is up to personal preference. This it gives the fly more body, and it helps you see the fly more better on the water. Now trim up any of these fibers that are protruding. Continue cleaning up to make sure that you have a very nice flat-headed fly, and make sure that there's no, you see this little guy right here, you want to make sure that none of that's there so you don't trap any of those while you are completing a whip finish. Taking your whip finish tool, you're going to whip finish right in the center here because you already have some thread built up there. Do 3 to 4 turns on this fly will suffice. 1, 2, 3, being careful to catch nothing. 4, and tie and tighten off like so. Be careful not to snap your thread there because you could possibly lose your whole fly. And now I always like to just leave a slight tail, just like any other knot. And there you have your Elk Hair Caddis. This is, I think, one of the better dry flies ever.